Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and Spotlight on Story is going to be on the 4th graphic novel that Marvel put out called New Mutants. Now, this is the origin story. This is the first appearance of all of these characters that are actually in the team, the New Mutants. Professor X, obviously, way back in X-Men number 1, and Donald Pierce is one of the eventually becomes one of the Reavers. He's a former member of the Hellfire Club here, and he's planning on taking over and everything. His first appearance was issue number 129 in Uncanny X-Men. Now, this whole thing was written by Chris Claremont. He is the genius mastermind behind it all. And Bob McLeod is the guy who did, for the most part, all of the art on here. So with that in mind, let's get started with this story. So we have Rain Sinclair. All right, she is Wolfsbane, and she makes her appearance first. We see Moira McTaggart sitting on her island well, it's not her island, but it's on Scotland, all right? And she's actually on her property, the Kinross property. And she's just there trying to think about, a bunch of different things, and all of a sudden this wolf jumps by her. And she's like, holy crap, wolves don't exist anymore here in Scotland. What's going on? All right, they were banished with the snakes, apparently. So it jumps over, I'm thinking Ireland. So this wolf jumps over and then in mid-leap turns into a girl and boom, crash lands and falls unconscious. Like, what the frick? You're thinking it tried to attack her. Actually, it's trying to escape from this mob, all right? They have these so-called Christian beliefs where it's like, oh, there's a witch. I don't remember seeing a whole lot of witch hunting in the Bible, but that's just me. Yet still, there are people who've obviously believed that was necessary. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been a Salem, Massachusetts incident, yes? So they're trying to get after her, but she's like, this is my property. And they try to talk big, but Moira talks a lot bigger. I'm like, all right, but, we'll be back. We're just trying to do the Lord's work, eh? Yeah, it's my crappy Scottish. They can take our wives, but they'll never take our freedom. Maybe it was they'll take their lives. Either way actually works, Braveheart. Moving on. So she decides I'm going to try and, save this girl. And the best thing I could do for her is bring her to Charles Xavier. More on that in a bit. We're going to switch over now. We're going to see Robert DaCosta, Sunspot. He's down in Brazil. If I could say that half as well as Vin Diesel said it in that one Fast and the Furious movie, I'd be awesome. Right now, I'm just partially awesome. In the meantime, they're down in friggin' Brazil. And it's just like there's this... they're really getting into the soccer game. And it's not even like World Cup or anything huge like that. No. And I know, we can't call it soccer. It's actually football. All right? It's not American football. It's world football, which Americans call soccer. So they're getting into this game. And it looks like it's just a bunch of high school kids for the most part playing. But they're really enjoying it. And it's a huge stadium. Makes sense. It makes sense. So they're getting into this game, and these two kids they're not particularly happy with DaCosta. DaCosta comes from a very wealthy family. They got a lot of influence, a lot of money, all that good stuff. They're the top 1%. And there's these other kids that for absolutely no reason other than you're privileged and I'm not, they get ticked off at this cat. So they check him in just the right way that they don't get caught. There's no yellow or red flag. That would be a red flag. And DaCosta gets up and he's not quite as couthful as they are. He jumps right at him. And that's the thing I love about Robert DaCosta. He's not afraid to mix it up with anybody. He's just like, bring the noise, man. He didn't know he had his powers at this point. But these kids turn around, and they're much bigger than him, and they start pounding him. So he, for the very first time, his mutant powers, expand, and all of a sudden, he turns into Sunspot proper. One of the hands-down greatest, best-drawn characters in all of comics is Sunspot. If you don't know anything about him, know that he looks awesome, and then work from there. Don't forget to check out Comic Book University's different characters explained in a minute. Check out the description below. You might be a little surprised. Okay, so we're going to see he actually kicks this kid off of him. And it's not like he just, broop. No, this kid goes sailing through the air, all right? DaCosta's strong when he turns into a Sunspot form, but he's only able to do it way back when for like maybe 10 minutes tops. At this time, it was probably 5 minutes tops. So all that good stuff happens. Everybody starts trying to escape. His dad and his sister, they're like, oh, let's get out of here. But no. His sister goes in. And his sister's the coolest, man. She's the coolest. She goes up and she hugs him. It's okay. We'll be okay together. I'm going to get more into that later. So we're going to skip over now to Kentucky. All right. I'm not even going to try and do a Kentucky accent. And Sam Guthrie, who eventually becomes Cannonball. This is a really sad story because his dad just died recently of the black lung. He was a miner, and Sam decides he's going to become a miner too. Now, he got a scholarship to go off to school, and he was going to be somebody special. He really was. But his mom, after his dad died, his mom refused out of pride to collect welfare. I think that's the silliest thing in the world. She paid into it. Dad paid into it. Everybody paid into it. It's now your time to collect. So her pride causes that the family's going to wind up going hungry. And with Sam being the oldest, he just kind of grins and bears it, and he decides to go to work in the mines. It's all that they know, and it's a shame. And literally, you read this, and for me, being strong on empathy and whatnot, I don't want to say empathetic. Well, I can say empathetic as long as I don't say that I'm an empath, because I'm not. I'm not Deanna Troi. What this is just I genuinely feel in my heart this is horrible, and I just want to go in there with Union strong, man. It's heartbreaking what this guy's got to deal with. Now, this whole time Donald Pierce is looking at these people. He's like, I'm going to kill all of you frickin' muties. I'm going to kill every single one of you. Remember, mutie is a very derogatory term. So, but with Cannonball specifically, it's your power set, I think I could use your power set. And then I'll dispose of you like the rest. So that's interesting. There's a cave-in as Sam's telling his story to his father's best friend, back in the day. And the one guy points out, is you got more bravery than brains, more heart, more guts than brains, just like your dad. Yeah, that pretty much describes him perfectly. So there's a cave-in, and he's able to save this guy by using his cannonball powers. That was his very first time using it also. It got triggered there. And fortunately, nobody really saw it, except for Pierce. So moving on, we're going to see Dani Moonstar. Now, more emphasis is put on Dani Moonstar than anybody else in this book. And it's a shame that the character is not used nearly as much as she could be today. In fact, I don't see her being used at all for the most part. But, yeah, what's today's date? Today's the 13th of November, the morning of the 13th of November in 2017. So if you're seeing this a year later and she's one of the biggest characters in the Marvel Universe, all right, man. In the meantime, this future Valkyrie, that's right, you heard me say it. I said it here. She, you get to see a little bit about her family, her life. She's off in the mountains of Colorado, and she's a Native American. She's Cheyenne, very specifically. And she is, of course, dealing with a lot of racism. Remember, guys, this is in the mid-'80s when you could be openly racist to anybody. And for the most part, nobody really knew because there's no internet, no nothing. And these were natives. And for the most part, people just didn't want them there. It's you're taking up a large amount of land and it's not cool. So she's there with her people are there. We never get to see her people. We do get to see her grandfather, however. We also get to see Ridge Runner. That's her pet mountain lion. Yeah, that's how cool Dani Moonstar is. She's got a pet mountain lion. So more on that later. She's talking with her grandfather, and she accidentally triggers something with her grandfather, his worst fears. That's her mutant power. She has the ability to it's not necessarily illusion generation, but she is able to automatically tap into your worst fears. She kind of reads you and then boom, hits you hard, She also has a form of animal empathy, animal communication. On a very basic level, she's able to communicate with animals. That's why Ridge Runner is such a good friend of hers, and that's why later on she's able to talk to Rain. More on that later. So we see that she triggers this thing in her grandfather, that he's being accosted, and this is actually a vision of the future, which is interesting. It's one of the things that helps her to become a Valkyrie. She sees a vision of the future of these two mandroid armor-looking guys beating up and eventually killing her grandfather. Well, this actually comes to pass the next day. But in the meantime, he tells her, listen, I can't do much else with you. You've got to learn how to use your powers. And there's a guy, Charles Xavier, who can help you out a whole lot better than I could ever. And it's funny because this guy boosts up Charles. Meanwhile, Charles talks up this guy. So they both have a great respect for each other. And here's an aspect of Charles Xavier that I don't remember ever really being explored, that Charles Xavier actually went to live with him and he saved his life, this grandfather figure. So that's something I wouldn't mind seeing something like that explained. If there are, please, in the comments below, rather than screaming at the screen, Professor Bill, it happened. If it did happen, in the comments below, please guide me in the right direction. I would love to read that story. In the meantime, she sees all this crazy stuff. It's like, oh, wow, that's messed up. What's going on? It's like, nothing. You to go. She's like, you want me to trust the white man? This seems like racism. Of course it's racism. And I hate to say it, but it's well-deserved. So she's like, I don't want to trust this white guy. I've never trusted, white people before. Why should we? Remember, guys, she's young. She's very young. She's only seen what she's going to see, and she's seeing it all through the emotions, that cloud young people's minds. So it should be pretty understood. All right. And remember, this is the 80s. So, again, Donald Pierce is staring at her and whatnot. And finally, we're going to go back to the Xavier mansion. Moira is there with Rain. Rain knows that Moira is not a Highlander, a noblewoman. Meanwhile, Rain is an orphan raised in a church, and she actually thinks that her own powers are a curse. She's like, I was cursed by a devil. What else could this be? And Xavier's trying to explain to her, no, that's not the case. Meanwhile, they're trying to deal with another mutant. I'm going to mess up this name. It's a Vietnamese name. Her name is Shan Khoi Man. And she eventually becomes Karma. She explains, so, I'm Karma. That's her name in here, her code name. Now, also I should mention, notes are in here, that Donald Pierce actually has a hostage with him, and it's Miss Tessa from the Hellfire Club. An essentially pointless character, but it's just the idea that he's got her kidnapped here. So, at about this time is X-Men issue number 161. The Brood have kidnapped the X-Men, but for the most part, the world thinks that the X-Men are dead. There's no reason for them to believe otherwise, right? So Professor X is kind of mourning, and he's not, doing so well with this. So he's like, I'm going to help you out with your powers, but I can't actually help you out, teaching you about anything because, it's going to break my heart. I can't make more X-Men, So Moira talks to him. It's like, listen, if you don't help, who will? Who will? So she gets a special delivery. It's actually for Charles, and it's, the father, the grandfather. And it's like, oh, wow, he needs help with Dani Moonstar. Oh no, I should go help. I shouldn't, but I should. So he has a little crisis of faith there, but it works out pretty quickly. They don't dwell on it for too long, which is a good thing. It is actually a telepathic communication between he and Moira. So it was actually done very well for this thing that that it's going to get through anyway. But it does give the idea that he is not happy with what happened. He's not just ignoring it, whatever. It's like, oh, my X-Men are dead. Let's go get some more X-Men. Let's make the New Mutants. No, it wasn't quite so droll. So, what happened here? So they go to Colorado to find out what's going on there. And when they get there, they find the dead body of Danny's grandfather. It's like, we're too late. Now, they're talking about some things and mourning and all at the same time. And all of a sudden, Vietnam happens. Now, this is crazy, right? Charles was actually in Korea, so this shouldn't seem too terribly different to him. It's like, oh wow, we're being attacked, So he was actually there with Kane Marco. But this is very clearly Vietnam. It's Moonstar. She realizes they're trespassers. She doesn't like the idea that they're there, and she attacks them by tapping into the worst fears of the person who has the worst fears, there. And clearly, this is the 80s, so it's not too far removed from Vietnam. So, Karma actually grew up. Shan actually grew up dealing with all that stuff, and her parents were both killed while they were trying to escape. She's got her brother and her sister. Brother has the same powers that she does, you know what I'm saying? But whatever, just a whole bunch of backstory there. Go and check out the comic. Real talk. Go and check out the comic. Also, Professor Bill, we got some explained in a minute for all these characters. Worth it. It's totally worth it. Description below, guys. So they get there and they have to deal with the Mandarin guys as expected, and they have these helmets that protect them against telepathic attacks. So Dani's attacks don't work against them because it affects the mind. On top of that, Karma's attacks don't work because that also affects the minds. Charles is a lot stronger, but we don't really see a whole lot of, him being able to penetrate that. You got to remember, half of this team that's there, that's all they've got. The only other person who they've really got there, is Rain. In, her ability to, Wolfsbane, able to turn into a wolf. So they're not having a very good time of this at all. Karma she is extremely powerful. She's got a more specific power than Charles Xavier. He can do what she does, but it takes a lot more strain. But she's able to possess people. Now, she's able to still have basic body movements for herself and think and talk and all that good stuff, but not a whole lot of like jumping, flipping, and ninja kicking. But the body she takes over, the mind she takes over, that body, she has full control over it. She can do all sorts of crazy feats with it, while at the same time still keeping her own mind intact. So, incredible, impressive power right there, right? But it is only possession, but it is on par. It's actually greater than what Professor X is able to do. So that's a very interesting aspect. So with that power level, she is able to penetrate through one of the guys. She's able to hold on to his mind and whatnot. Not before one of them is able to kill Ridge Runner, the pet mountain lion. That's messed up, man. That's messed up. That's like, we really need you to hate these guys, and here's the way we're going to do it. All right, so moving on with the story. They're able to save Karma. She's obviously very bitter and very angry. I don't want to join you. Fine, I'll join you. Oh, wait. No, I don't want to join you. Eventually, okay, fine, I'll join you. Shut up. But I'm gonna be the one who kills Donald Pierce. Okay, sure. So they decide they've got to split up now because they've got the little Cerebro watch on there that will point out, okay, mutant right there. That's the one we're looking for. It turns out that they figure out that Sam Guthrie in Kentucky and Robert DaCosta in Brazil, they have to deal with going and trying to rescue these guys. But there's no way they can get to them both in time. They're both in trouble. So Professor X and Rain decide they're going to go after Sam, and the others, the rest, including Moira, are going to go down to Brazil and try and save Robert DaCosta, Sunspot. So we go down there, and immediately... while they're in the hotel room there, somebody jumps in and says, "Hey man, how you doing?" And smacks Moira. Again, this is the 80s, and I'm wondering if a lot of these people didn't beat their wives all the time, man, because it's nothing. There's no revenge taken, no nothing like that. It's just like, oh yeah, guy smacked a girl across the face, knocked her on the ground. Happens all the time, right? So these guys are bodyguards / police. Because there's, it turns out that the daughter of what was it, Julianne? What's her name? Let me see. Yep, Julianne. That is Julianne DaCosta, the sister of Robert DaCosta. She's kidnapped. So it's like, oh man, this is messed up. So when they come and they make a call, they make contact to DaCosta, Papa DaCosta. They're like, okay, hey, we're gonna come and try and help out your son. Well, these guys intercept the call, like, uncool. We're gonna find out what's the matter with these guys because they're probably the ones who kidnapped. They just come into the country and they stay in this hotel. They're probably the ones who kidnapped Juliana. So I get it, but going in and just smacking people around, especially women, not cool, man, not cool. Welcome to 2017, all right. So anyway, they what do you call it? They're able to get away at some point. The city's huge. You know what I'm saying? So eventually they were able to get out of there. I don't know if they're actually in Rio de Janeiro or not, but they're able to, in the crowd, cause a little bit of distraction, possess the one guy, make them get into a fist fight with each other, and then they're able to escape. Moira gets stuck, which is it's kind of a good thing for the story, but it's not a good thing for her because they don't treat her well in there and whatnot. It's just whatever. It's alluded to that she was roughhoused and smacked around a little bit more, I imagine. Again, no revenge was taken. No revenge was taken. So they Danny, Karma, Moira, they go after him, and okay, so. They go to the household of Robert DaCosta at this point. I almost feel like the notes are slowing me down, but I want to make sure I stay on point. They go after Robert DaCosta to try and help him out, but when they get there, it's nighttime, and they see he's got a nice walled home and whatnot, and he jumps over the top and he runs off. Like, what? And they check out the little wristwatch, Cerebro. Yes, it's him. It's him. Let's go after him. So they start trying to follow him, but he's fast. You know what I'm saying? This little kid, he's effing fast. And he's able to get up to where these people, and we've seen these guys before in the earlier X-Men comics. It's the Hellfire Club Minions. You know what I'm saying? They got the mask on, the really weird looking freaky mask where you can see their eyes and their mouth, but it looks like a blank face staring back at you. So these guys are like, hey, you're finally here. It's like, okay, now let my sister go. And it's like, man, don't talk to us like that. Psh, shut up. We'll do whatever we want with you. So at this point, DaCosta realizes you're just going to try and ransom us both off. You got just one of us and you got me also now. Okay, so what's the ransom going to be? It's like, man, this ain't going to be no ransom. We're here to kill you, you little mutie. Puts the gun up to his face. Now, he's able to turn into Sunspot, and he's able to fight back. And he's doing a pretty good job at first, but then he realizes that these guys are actually cyborgs. They explain how this guy named Wolverine sliced them to ribbons, and now a lot of their body parts are actually cybernetic. So these guys are able to take what he's got, what he's given them. Remember, he's extremely strong. About this time, he's able to bench press, if not a ton, almost a ton, but I think at least a ton at this particular age. And he, trust me, when he gets a lot older, he's going to go after a Red Hulk and not do such a bad job. So he walks away, the Red Hulk doesn't. Let's just put it that way. He becomes an incredible fighter, but right now, he's just a little kid who's very strong but doesn't really know what he's doing, So these guys are doing better than him. He's not doing so great. And then he's only able to keep his power going for that couple of minutes. He loses his power. So at this point, they put the gun to their head. They're about to pull the trigger, but unfortunately, everybody else joins in. So Karma takes possession of one of the guys, and all of the others, Dani Moonstar starts putting in that poison of the psychic illusions, the fears, And what's the fear that they see? They see Wolverine. No joke, they see Wolverine coming up and going after him. It's like, oh my God, he's going to take the rest of our body parts. So they're all sorts of freaked out and trying to, shuck and jive and move out the way and try and get out of there, right? So what happens? At one point, they actually, Sunspot actually comes to. Now, this is great. This is one of the things that I love about this comic book, all right? This is one of the things I love about the storytelling back in the day. What happens is Dani Moonstar goes and she does this like ninja-like kick, the Cheyenne ninja kick on one of the guys. And Karma's like, no, that's the one I've got possessed. She's like, well, I kicked him pretty hard. You should probably consider possessing one of the other guys now. But they're already taken care of by you. So, what do you call it? He's still kind of possessed, whatever, but then she goes, Karma decides to go and try and pick up DaCosta. It's like, all right, man, come on, get up. We're going to try and get you out of here. We're going to try and save you and your sister. He just comes to her like, what just happened? So he's able to turn back to Sunspot for a couple of seconds only, and he hits her. Oh, man. So she's pretty much out of it. Now she drops her possession at this point, and this guy, it turns out he's the worst of them all. He's the most ruthless of them all. So these other guys, they start like shooting. They just start, bow, 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 shooting the machine gun. Moment of silence. Juliana gets shot and killed. Yeah, she actually dies. So Robert DaCosta's sister is murdered right there in front of his eyes. He went there to save her. Couldn't. It's actually, they do a pretty good job of showing how messed up it is and how the angst works, But more than that, they have to keep going. They have to keep fighting. So with all the screw-ups and all the mistakes going on, Moonstar turns her attention mostly on the main guy because that's where the fears are the worst. And Wolverine actually almost looks demonic at this point. His fears are also Wolverine, but he's more afraid of Wolverine than the other guys are. So he's completely crippled with fear at this point, laying there just like shaking in fetal position. Wow. So these guys are able to escape. They're eventually able to get Moira out. And they go back home because, Moira's whatever. She's fine. But they go back home, and they have to go immediately to Kentucky to help out. Because over in Kentucky, Professor X and Rain, Wolfsbane, are in a Jeep, and immediately, boom, hit by Cannonball. What? Was this an accident? Oh, I did tell you that Bishop was talking about actually trying to recruit Cannonball. And they did. They recruited him, put him in one of the uniforms. He didn't get the stupid mask. Thank God. But he did have the stupid uniform, the blue with the little red collar and parts all over the place. So he is now a member of the Hellfire Club-ish. He's one of those recruits. So, did I mention that a lot of these guys have the cybernetic parts on them? Yeah, cut to ribbon, so they're a lot stronger. Yes, I did. So they're not nearly as afraid of this guy as they probably should be. But they are yelling at him and telling him, load Professor X's body on this, this truck, the helicopter, whatever. We're going to take him and all this good stuff. Rain, meanwhile, is able to get away because she turns to her wolf form and Professor X prods her along. But the Jeep is destroyed. Professor X is unconscious and just, yeah. And Cannonball is already doing what he can to be on the side. Now, this was great because this wasn't necessary. It didn't necessarily push the team that much forward, But, or the story even, but it was just something extra. It's just something else going on. Sam was duped because he was promised a good salary and all that stuff. And Bishop knew, you actually need money and I can provide you with money. So he played on his weakness really well. That was perfect. It's funny. I want you to think about this. When people go for top secret or whatever, any kind of secret or security access, the main thing they question you on is your finances, your income. Are you in debt? Do you have money problems? Because if you are, then you're more likely to be bribed. You're more likely to give away information. That's the way they look at it. They're not all about, do you tell the truth or not? It's how financially stable are you? So just saying, that was done really well, my opinion. All right, so they take him back to Bishop, and Bishop's got Tessa there and all that. And they're hooking up to this machine where there's a psychic dampener. They're going to drain everything and find out all the information they possibly can, and then they're just going to kill him. So, yeah, it's messed up. And like, oh, yeah, by the way, please resist, because the more you resist, the more machine's going to hurt. It's going to really start to cripple your brain, and the damage is irreversible. It's permanent. So he's pretty confident. Guys, this is only a double-sized issue. There's about, 50 pages or so in this, but there's a lot of content jam-packed inside this. I'm just saying. So Rain winds up following. She's using her tracking ability to get there. And this is also where we see very briefly, it's like a blink and you miss it. Dani Moonstar has that communication. She's like, aha, okay, listen, Rain, I'm able to communicate to you with my animal empathy ability, but here's the thing. It's not an actual telepathy. So only while you're in your wolf form or your half-wolf form can I actually talk to you. And I need you to really think out your answer when you're going to answer me and answer as simply as you can, because animals do not have complicated thoughts. So it gets very hard to understand if you're going to have a conversation with me in your mind. The detail is extraordinary. That's great. That is just great. I love that. So, they go off and they're trying to rescue Professor X, And it's funny because Rain is able, the thing she does is she jumps over top of the fence. How does a wolf jump over top of this high fence? Because she turns into her wolf hybrid form, which has the dexterity of a human, but the strength and all that stuff of the wolf. So that was cool. That was a good explanation. And she leaps over top, turns back into a full wolf to hope that the dogs don't bark at her, leaps again and does the whole hybrid thing, and then runs off as a wolf again. A lot of detail, man. All in one panel. A lot of detail. I loved that. So good. So they get in there and they start fighting. Cannonball shows up and he starts trying to fight against the New Mutants and hits DaCosta from behind. And like he never forgives him for that. He's like, "You attack people from the back. You are not a real man." I love the nobility and the chivalry of DaCosta. It's amazing. And again, Guthrie's just doing what he's doing. You know what I'm saying? Just whatever. It's not that he's a bad guy. It's just that he started off with some moral scruples that weren't so perfectly conditioned to DaCosta's like a paladin. At first, he gets a lot more complicated later on. We'll talk Gideon and all that good stuff at one point. So, Karma is trying to possess somebody, but she's actually trying to possess Cannonball at one point, but she can't because there's too much excitement and she's not focused well. Remember, none of these guys really know how to use their powers very well at all. So these guys are being recruited in a very different format than the new X-Men were. You know what I'm saying? Including the original X-Men. It's hard to say. So, what do you call it? Karma at one point picks up a machine gun and she starts using it. And it's great. She's like, "Thank God, my grandfather taught me how to use guns." And yeah, in an environment like that, why wouldn't she learn how to use guns? So, and yeah, no, guys, guns is not just pulling a trigger, just pointing that out. So, Rain is the first one to go after Bishop, because these guys are able to finally get through most of these minions, these foot soldiers, and they get up to Bishop, Donald Pierce, who is the White Bishop in the Hellfire Club. See where I made the mistake? So Rain jumps up there and she gets a good bite, solid bite on this dude on his left arm, incapacitates his arm. Why not rip it off? He's a cyborg. He's mostly cybernetic. That was revealed back in the X-Men. And he's also got, here's the real kicker, he's also got a psychic dampener on him, stronger than most of the other guys. So Karma can't penetrate this at all. Moonstar, she tries to penetrate it, she gets the fear bounce back at her. Like she gets hit hard. Karma's down. Moonstar is down. Professor X can't do anything to begin with. So half the team is down right there. Cannonball's on the other team. Rain, she when she goes and bites his arm and disables it, he gives her a kick, slams her into some machinery, actually punctures one of her lungs. Oh, man. So all that's left really is Sunspot. Not looking so good. And he doesn't get to keep his powers for very long. He actually gets hit really hard. Like Pierce is not messing around, man. And he's all cybernetic. It's a messed up situation. And the best they can hope for is Professor X mentally goading Rain, as messed up as she is, get up there and pull that lever. When she finally does pull the lever, it opens up the world to Professor X, and he's able to escape, and he stops Pierce's hand and keeps him immobilized. Karma eventually wakes up, and with the psychic barrier already dropped, she's able to, take over because Professor X is already really tired. So he's just incapacitated at this point, but they know they can't keep it for very long. So Tessa says, "I'll take him." And the Hellfire Club will never let him live this down. He was planning on taking us over hostilely. Not cool. Not cool. So Rain, in the meantime, Wolfsbane, they have to take her to the hospital immediately. But even on the way, they see that her wound was already starting to stitch up. And this was a critical wound. It could have been, fatal to her. But inside of like 2 weeks, I think it was, she's completely healed. Full recovery. So, wow, man. That's impressive. That's impressive. She's got a little healing factor thing going there. So you can see kind of where they're making the comparisons to all the other X-Men, right? on ones that worked. So at this point, they go back home. Moonstar, they're all given their costumes. You know what I'm saying? That yellow and black costume that they're given. And Rain's like, oh, it's magical. When I turn into my wolf form, it just disappears. It turns invisible. And then it comes back normal again when I'm, back to my girl form, instead of ripping her clothes and being stuck out naked in the middle of the woods in the freezing cold. I'm just saying. This is a little bit better, And of course, they're just made out of a form of unstable molecules. So there's that. Anyway, Moonstar changes her outfit. Everybody's, they're all dress. They're all wearing the same outfit. She, however, wears a different kind of belt and her brown native boots with the frills in the back. Fantastic. And she looks great. And Professor X really quickly challenged her, why are you out of uniform? And all he was doing is trying to make sure that she's still strong-willed, and she absolutely is. And she's like, I'm wearing a uniform, but I'm also going to wear mine. So, and he doesn't fight. He doesn't fight at all. He's like, good. I think we're going to have a very interesting relationship. The only other thing that really happens here at this point is Cannonball, Sam Guthrie, shows up. It's like, hi, Professor X contacted me and said that all's forgiven because he understands. That was good, of course. That was good. It was a little bit rushed, but it worked. Remember, that whole story with him switching sides, so to speak, never had to happen in the first place. So, yeah, I know he wasn't switching sides, but he was on the wrong side. So now he switches sides and comes over to the right side of the New Mutants. So all these guys are going to get trained. Mind you, Shen is given a position of authority here, and she's actually on the payroll because she's got to be able to help out her siblings, her younger siblings. But what do you call it? She's also going to kind of take part in the teaching and things like that. So it's cool. Look, the way they end the story is great. And they actually, of course, instead of saying the end, they say the beginning. So this, of course, breaks into the New Mutants regular monthly series and a whole bunch of other good stuff. Crossovers. Almost immediately breaks into a Shadow King story. Check out Shadow King Explained in a minute below. A lot of stuff, guys. New Mutants was very well received. Very well received. And most of that is because of the love that this graphic novel got. Just pointing that out. All right, guys. Clearly, this is something that was huge for me. This is for the TV series, the movie that's coming out, which is supposed to be based on, let's just say, Demon Bear and leave it at that. Yes, I will get to that one day. All right, guys. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.